Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today, let's talk about why you can feel safe hiring an executor, sort of as opposed to using a family member or doing it yourself. So this is another case study from one of our clients. As always, we anonymize and change the details just enough to protect the privacy of our clients. So we're going to call this client Sean. And Sean is from a blended family. His mom passed away, sadly, survived by Sean and his two siblings, all adults, and a stepfather who was actually separated from his mom many years prior to her passing. Okay? So there's some possible trust issues. We have a blended family where the surviving spouse, quotes, air quotes, was, not the biological parent of the children. So that always creates a potential situation.
It's quite the dynamic.
Yeah. And then you have to throw into the mix that the spouse they were apart, and there's definitely an argument that he's not a spouse, right? I think we've done episodes on that, so we won't get into those details now. Maybe we can link to those, but so there's a couple of different dynamics here that might lead to trust issues. So in that type of scenario, in Sean's scenario, an independent professional executor makes a ton of sense, because if you have the step of the spouse, which is the stepfather, as an executor, kids might not be so happy with that. Right. And if you have one of the adult children as the executor, stepfather might not be 100% trusting on that.
Yes.
So when people wonder, what do you mean by independent? Like, this is what we're talking about, a situation like this. Okay. So, although it makes sense to have an independent executor, a professional executor like myself, some of the heirs were a little bit concerned about sort of totally handing over control of their mom's estate to an attorney who they had just met. We had actually just met when we were discussing this situation. Totally understand. That's a very normal reaction. But so today we'll talk about a couple of reasons why, although that's an understandable and a fair question, here are the reasons why you don't really need to worry when hiring a professional executor. All right? Okay, first we're going to talk about the estate accounting and how that sort of should make you a little less nervous about hiring a professional non-family executor. So when you work with a professional, I would close my estate with a full accounting. And what that is, that's the sort of term of art for the full books and records of the estate, where everyone, the stepdad, the siblings, Sean, maybe even the creditors, everyone in the court, everyone gets to see line by line, every dollar in, every dollar out, like what exactly happened with every dollar and cent of the estate. We're talking full transparency and disclosure, okay? So what do the heirs get? They get to see everything that happened with sort of no question marks. They are seeing everything.
It's all there in black and white.
Yeah.
And
why do I do that? Number one, to put the minds of the heirs at ease, but it's also for my protection.
Sure.
I can only be released from liability. I can only be set free from what I've disclosed. So it's in my best interest to disclose everything because I want to be set free from everything. Now contrast this with an amateur executor, the family member, the friend, the neighbor. Bluntly, no matter how hard they try, no matter how well-intentioned they are, no matter how organized they are with their with their personal lives, their estate records suck. They're terrible.
Yes, I can attest to this.
Yeah, you're helping organize a couple right now, right?
Gathering this information, and it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah. It's actually hilarious. Well, it's hilarious for me to watch Janice doing it.
Oh, thanks. Yes, it's super fun for me to do it. Yes.
And to be specific, what we're talking about is where we have cases where a family member is the executor, and at the end, we say, okay, please send us all the receipts and records, and they send something. I mean, they think they've done a good job. I mean, they did their best. And then Janice has to plow through that and say, okay, you're only missing 40 things. That's awesome. So can you get me those 40 things that I need?
And then we whittle it down to 20 things. And then we whittle it down to 2 things.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, this has been about 2 months for
2 months and all billable, by the way. We have to charge.
Right. It takes a long time for me to gather everything. Yeah.
And often there are holes. There are items we cannot find, or the non-professional executor cannot find. So, usually these non-professional accountings are kind of just okay at best, right? You're not getting the full, clean disclosure that you would get with a pro.
Absolutely.
And so, I'm not trying to say that we're just more organized than others. I mean, I guess in a sense we are, but the reason we're so much more organized is because we are keenly aware of the risks of liability. Meaning, if we mess up, we know the courts are going to come down on us.
Yeah.
I don't think amateurs quite get that.
No. And we also know the end game. Yeah. So when we start, the first moment we start, we know how to set up a file. We know exactly what we have to obtain and keep track of. And so it's not playing catch up at the end. We're working that whole time so we can produce this line by line, penny by penny accounting.
Exactly right. I know we're just completely tooting our own horns, but just kind of trying to lay it out for you.
It is, though. It took a long time to get there. I mean, it wasn't our first rodeo.
Very true. Very true. Just by sheer repetition. That's how we are.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about another reason why you should feel pretty safe or pretty confident when you work with a professional executor, even if you've sort of just met that person. As long as you get a good feeling, you're hiring the right person. Let's talk about executor bonds. What does an executor bond do? In short, a bond is insurance for the insurance against the executor for the benefit of the heirs. So if the executor either screws up, makes a mistake, loses something, or is an outright thief, any of those things that result in the heirs not, money being missing that should have gone to the heirs, then the bond company, which is an insurance company, will pay, will pay a claim, will pay out to the heirs, and then it'll be on the bond company, the insurance company, to try to recover against the executor. So if you have a bond in place, if you have this insurance in place, the worst that'll happen if the executor messes up is that you, as an heir, get to file a claim against the insurance company, and you'll just get paid from them instead of from the executor. And then the executor and the insurance company will be fighting a life and death battle in the background, but you've already been paid.
But you will not be, yeah.
So if you're wondering, then I'll just get my Uncle Bob to do a bond. It's not. You need excellent credit, like sterling credit, to get bonds, especially for large estates. Yeah. And sometimes that fluctuates. Sometimes when things are slow or the economy is whatever, the bond companies will loosen their reins a little bit. But generally, they want like 750 plus credit scores. And if you have that, awesome. That might be a solution for you. There's other reasons why you should probably still want to go with a pro, but that's one reason why it's tough for some amateurs to get a bond. We've never had a problem getting a bond. And we've never had any claims against our bonds because, we do a good job. But very often we get them anyway, just to make the heirs feel better, or sometimes the courts just straight up require them. So
yes, yep.
There's no problem for us to do that, but just make sure that if you're hiring us and you're deciding whether or not you want to ask for us to file a bond, again, we're fine with that. Just make sure that you and your family are okay with the premium. The bond premium, the cost of that insurance, that comes out of the estate, and it's annual. So, ask. We'll try our best to get an estimate, a quote on that, and you can decide if it's worth paying that premium. All right. So, going back to our Sean example, one of the last suggestions or questions was, okay, the bond sounds good and the accounting sounds good, but in case we're not quite there yet, can we have Sean as your co-executor, meaning one family member and one pro? So, they're kind of wondering, are co-executors a good idea? And the short answer is no.
Right. I like that answer. Yeah, no.
Why? It boils down to that old saying, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the soup.
Yes. Yeah.
And what that old saying means, if you're not familiar with it, is when you have too many, decision makers or too many people involved in what's really a one-man job, it just mucks things up. You need everyone's original signatures. You need everyone's authorization on all decisions. So all the benefits of hiring a pro, meaning one of the main benefits of hiring a pro is you have a centralized decision maker who is experienced, who can make quick decisions and move this thing along as fast as you need it to move, because you guys want to just wrap this up and move on with your lives.
Right.
You're kind of throwing that out the window because now I have to get a hold of my co-executor, Sean, and make sure he's on board. And if he doesn't live in New York, which he doesn't, have Sean fly in or drive up or whatever the case may be, and come with me to the bank. And yes, oddly enough, even in the current safety times, banks still want us to come in person. Yeah. It's and require it for certain things. So yeah.
And just even the signatures alone, when you're talking about two people that have to sign the same document, how long does it take to mail to one, to mail to the other, to mail it back? I mean, it's not a quick process. And then what we talked about earlier with amateurs, maybe with the not so good record keeping. Now you have one that's keeping records to a T. You got another one who's kind of keeping records. And then at the very end, you got to try to put that together and make it work. I mean, it is complicated, to say the least.
So I do not advocate this route, but if it's the only way to get the family members on board and have a professional executor involved, sure, we've done it. It actually creates more work for us, but for the right family, we're totally willing to do it. I mean, I can't. I think my hesitation speaks for itself. we don't love doing it,
silence.
But
well,
if we have to, we have to.
We could, but
yeah, pretty much. So we'll leave it at that. Not a good idea. You're going to get a full accounting. You can bond if you like, and those are probably the best ways to sort of assure yourself and move forward with a professional. Absolutely.
And if there's a lot that goes into being an executor, I suggest Anthony's book, How Probate Works, available on Amazon and the website. It really goes into what's entailed, and that's going to be entailed for both, if you have a co-executor, for both people, not just one.
Very good. All right. Thank you as usual, Janice, for jumping on. And thank you all for listening. We will talk again next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.